A steady glare from the now flameless embers painted the sides and back of the fireplace with its colour, and the well-polished andirons and the old brass tongs that would not meet. The underside of the mantel-shelf was flushed with the high-coloured light, and the legs of the table nearest the fire. Tessie's face and neck reflected the same warmth, which each gem turned into an Aldebaran or a Sirius, a constellation of white, red, and green flashes that interchanged their hues with every pulsation. Hello, and welcome to Sempriest Rhetoric. One type of video that I'd like to do on this channel is actually just occasionally give some tips for students, perhaps, particularly students maybe studying literature. I recently did a talk actually at a college on literature, and I threw a few tips in as well. Today I'm not going to actually mention any of the tips I came up with in that talk, so this is one I just really thought of yesterday. So let's get into it. So basically, it can be difficult when you have a lot of books to read, especially if they're novels and you really want to engage in the novel and not just skim read something for information like you would perhaps a textbook. Right, so sometimes I can read, say, a paragraph or a page and then immediately realise that, wait a minute, I don't remember what I read. It's a bit like checking your phone or your watch, if you've got one, for the time, and then 30 seconds later you think, hold on a minute, what was the time again? For some reason you checked, but you just didn't store the information anywhere. Maybe that's just me who does that, I don't know. I've heard the common phrase, in one ear, out the other. So I guess this is the same thing, but maybe it should be through one eye and out the other. We often drift off mentally. We're looking at the words rather than actually reading them or properly visualizing them. It's difficult for us to always be focused on what we're reading, especially if you have a lot of books to read, or you just have a lot of problems, a lot of things on your mind, a lot of worries. The mind really does just drift off all the time. Here's the solution then. If you can, start reading out loud, just to begin with. Read slowly, focus on the words, the cadences, the tone, the pauses and so on, just like I did at the beginning of this video. Do voices for the characters even, if there are characters that demand it. Make it fun, as though you were reading for someone else's enjoyment, not only your own. I think that you will find this helps to focus on the text, on the story and the imagery, and to block out any unwanted thoughts. It's a bit like in meditation, when people use a mantra. They focus on the words and the sounds of what they're saying in the interest of eliminating these wandering and unwanted thoughts. So just think of this technique as a kind of warm-up task or mental preparation, perhaps. Okay, now you might be thinking, oh, all right, very funny, but what if you're on a bus or sat in a library? Well, actually, in this situation, I do something similar. I start reading to myself, silently, of course, but just as though I was actually reading aloud. So I'm reading it much slower. I'm actually thinking about the words in the speech deliberately, purposefully. Okay, so you only need to read aloud or to read to yourself in this deliberate way for a short while. You don't have to go on for an hour like this. You might then find yourself going into your normal, quicker paced, silent reading just automatically or unconsciously. You may only feel the need to read aloud, like I say, just a paragraph, just a page. I guess it depends on how much your mind is likely to drift. One day you might have a lot more on your brain than another day. Well, anyway, it's worked for me quite a few times, and it's just something that I found out for myself. I'm not sure how well known this practice is, though I certainly don't suppose I'm the first person to do it. Historians, a bit of trip down the history lane perhaps. Historians say that reading quietly wasn't the common practice until probably around the 17th or 18th centuries. Really, I mean, for hundreds of years, books had been a rare commodity, and most readings of books or texts would have been much more of a social interaction. So I guess the invention of the printing press in the 15th century, and then the gradual increase in availability and affordability of books, made private reading more common, and also probably the act of silent reading. Really, nobody knows, to be sure. But the point is that reading to yourself is not actually all that silly, or reading aloud to yourself. Also, a useful practice this is, whether you are reading a language that you are studying or if it's just your own mother tongue. Reading aloud is a different kind of exercise or skill compared to more casual acts of speech. So anyway, that's my first ever top tip. Stay tuned for videos of a different kind, and hopefully in the future more student related tips such as this one. Thank you very much.